Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast, which features interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, without further ado, I'll hand you over to your host, Holly Wharton.
Hello and welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast, episode 95. This is your host, Holly Wharton. I'm here with today's special guest, Shih. Jenny is an uncompromising business coach who believes that business doesn't have to be so hard. She helps women entrepreneurs establish expertise and achieve best-in-class results by showing them, step by step, how to apply solid business theory to their unique businesses. With her practical tips, she helps her clients create and grow the businesses they've been dreaming of. Welcome, Jenny.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Really, really excited to talk business with you today.
Likewise.
So why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about your background and your business journey and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, it's been not a straight path, that's for sure. I started out as an engineer at a Fortune 500 company. I had an engineering degree, and it was what I did because that's what I went to college for, but I certainly didn't like it. And, along the way, I learned about delegation and working with manufacturing and project management and all these sort of great corporate skills. And even though it wasn't fun, I was doing all right, but decided to go into management. And so I started working and managing teams of engineers developing new products at that company. And it was better because I wasn't in the nitty-gritty of engineering, which wasn't really my thing, but it still felt so constraining being in a corporate environment. And there was only so much I could really do within that structure. And at the same time, it wasn't really fulfilling. Creating high-tech office products, I know that really does it for some people, but it just didn't do it for me. And so I started a little bit of a soul search. I thought, I can't retire from this job at 60 or 65, I will regret it. I will regret that this is all I've done with my career. And so I started some soul searching, and I decided after a couple years of looking around to become a life coach. So I signed up for life coach training, and I quit my job, which was crazy, but I quit my job to start this life coaching business. And I thought, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I've meant to do. And about 6 to 10 months later, I realized I was not meant to be a life coach. It was not my thing. And so it was a little bit scary because I had quit my job, and as the income earner in our household, there was a lot riding on my shoulders to making my business work. And I did some regrouping and realized that I needed to combine a little bit of my new coaching skills with my background in engineering and in corporate and the things that made me successful there. And I found this middle ground of project management, virtual assistants, technical assistants, and I launched JennyShih.com doing all of those things for entrepreneurs. And since then, I've learned a lot about business and marketing and realized that I had a knack for those even more so. And now that's what I do. So I teach other business owners how to start and create and grow online businesses doing work that they're super passionate about.
I love that. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome once you finally found what your business was?
Well, honestly, everything I did until I figured out, all the challenges were almost before I figured out what I wanted to do. It sounds a little bit crazy, but the first, however long it was, 6 to 10 to 12 months. I'm not exactly, I can't remember. I have to go pull up a calendar or something. But somewhere in then, I built a website and I learned how to blog and I sent my newsletter and I went to networking events and I learned a lot about the mindset of an entrepreneur. So I did all of that. I did all of that stuff in a business that I ended up closing. So then when I started JennyShih.com, I still had lots to learn, but it's like I had gone through all of those hurdles previously. So once I knew that I wanted to do JennyShih.com, I was ready to just really go for it. I was ready to write regularly and send newsletters and be on social media and try new things and really go for it because I didn't want to go back to my job. So the biggest hurdles were almost all the things that happened before I figured out what I wanted to do and actually figuring out what I wanted to do. The execution part, this is opposite for a lot of my clients, but the execution part for me was easier than the figuring out what I actually wanted.
Yeah, I think it can be really, really challenging once you've left that job and you know you want to start a business, but exactly what it is that you want to do because you like the coaching, but is it going to be life coaching, business coaching? Like, who are you going to work with and how are you going to help them? That can be really, really tricky.
Yeah.
So what do you think it was for you that helped you realize what your thing was?
Well, I worked with a coach.
Yeah.
That was really it. I worked with a coach who knew me well and who was willing to help me dive into what really made me tick. And part of it was so hard because the thing I help people with is often as plain as my face, meaning like it's so right there, I don't even realize it. That I just think in this systematic and structured and step-by-step way, that's just how I am in the world. And it took me a while, and gosh, I still even spend time realizing to the degree to which other people need that, like really realizing, oh, not everybody thinks this way. And I think that's the case for a lot of us in these businesses. We do things in a unique way, and we really have to realize what about us is different than other people so that we can bring that to them.
Yeah, and I think working with a coach is just vital because coaches give you that external perspective, and they have a way of picking your brains to pull out the important stuff that you can't see because you're so wrapped up in your head that you're just lost.
Yes, totally.
Good. So did you experience any kind of tipping point in your business where things kind of went from that uphill struggle to grow into flow?
Oh, I think there's been several of those. It was really an uphill struggle before I figured out that my life coaching business was not the right business for me. And that was just like daily struggle after struggle. And so one of the tipping point was when I realized what I wanted to do, because all of a sudden I had this enthusiasm that I did not really have in my previous business. I had this enthusiasm and this excitement and this drive to go and really make it work. So that was the first really big one. And that brought me so much energy and momentum to do the hard things, because starting a business isn't easy. I say business doesn't have to be so hard, but it doesn't mean it's easy. I will never say that to anybody. But it gave me this enthusiasm to really push for it. And so that was the first really big tipping point, figuring out what I wanted to do and taking all the things that I'd been practicing in this business that never really got anywhere and bringing it in. And then the next one was really once I got my list to 1,000 subscribers, and I have a class on it, as you know. So the first 6 months of JennyShih.com, I focused on building my list intensely. And it was not about just getting massive numbers and anything like that. It was really about getting a high quality list of people who are interested. And by doing that, I brought customers and clients to me. It brought people who are interested in my work. And that was really when my business started to take off. And it's why I love my program, Get Your First 1,000 Subscribers, because it helps people do just that. I say everything you do to build your list brings you new clients and customers. So getting my list to that point was huge. And that's when I thought, okay, I really don't have to go back to my job. Like this can really work. And that brought a whole sense of relief. And it also, when we're under a lot of stress, we can't access the creative part of our brain. So as soon as I was no longer under that daily stress of, oh crap, am I going to have to go back to my job, anything like that, it then freed up this next level of where do I want to go? What's the next thing I need to do? Really pushed myself to the next level in my business. And there's lots of little tipping points along that continued along the way, but I would say those are the two biggest ones.
So when you were building your list and focusing all of your energy on that, did you have that goal of 1,000 subscribers, or did you just think, I'm going to build this thing and see where it goes?
No, I said, I want to get 1,000 subscribers in 6 months. I don't know why. I just picked it. And now, that's really the premise of the program. I mean, some people do it faster. Some people take longer. There's not really, everybody goes at their own pace. But that was it. I said, in 6 months. So my business launched on March 1st of 2011. And I said, by September 1st, I want to have 1,000 subscribers. And then when it was the summer, I realized I was close and I thought, I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to teach a class on it. And then something about that just got me so excited. So then I taught a class on it, which it's been revamped since then. So it's a much more comprehensive program, but that was my carrot.
I love that. I love how you had such a clear goal and you made it happen. So tell us a little bit about this concept of yours, about how to make your business work without working too hard. Because I think so many of us really, really struggle with, the systems and the day-to-day running of the business. It's like we just want to do our thing that we're good at and that we love doing, that we do forever and ever. But it's all the back-end stuff that just kind of drags us down. So tell us about your perspective on this.
Okay, this is my favorite thing to talk about.
Yay!
So I will just give you bits and pieces and you can always ask more because otherwise we're going to have to be on for the whole day because I could keep going. So, all right. So here's the deal. I'm just going to give you this straight up scoop. When I see entrepreneurs say that they're working every night, all night, working long weekends, they're so ragged, they're so exhausted, I want to tell them it means you're doing something wrong. And I say that with so much love and compassion and my desire for each one of those people who is doing that to learn that there's a better way and an easier way. Oh, I do not believe whatsoever that there is any reason why a business owner needs to work obscene hours and exhaust themselves. Now, it does not mean that we don't get fired up about something and work late into the night or take over a weekend because we are fueling with passion and excitement. That is very different from running ragged all the time in our businesses. Does this sound all right?
Yeah,
Am I going to piss any people off?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I've got very, very clear boundaries on my time. I get off the computer at a certain time. My weekends are off the computer. But I have a lot of friends who just work, 12, 14-hour days, 7 days a week. And I've been there. I did that in my very first business. But I ran myself into the ground, totally burnt out, and I will not do that again.
Right. And so to those people and anyone listening who finds themselves in that situation, I'm going to tell you some of the things that you can do differently that are really easy that are causing you to get in this place that we can shift you out of this place. That sound okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So the number one reason I believe, now this is not like based on some research university study, this is based on Jenny Shihism only. That's it, is that the reason people work long hours is they don't have clear focus and clear priorities. And here's what that means. I see this with new business owners and experienced business owners all the time. What happens is, let's just take a new business owner because I love to work with examples. All right. So she knows she wants to be a life coach and she wants to start her business and she needs to build her website and she needs to blog and she needs to figure out, and she's inundated with all of this information because she's subscribed to 100 newsletters on how to build her business. And she's taken 5 classes and she's got all this information. And so when she sits down at her computer or at her desk to get work done, her head is so full of all of these messages she's gotten from a million business owners on all the things she should be doing. So she sits down and she sees there's this mental landscape of clutter of all the things that need to happen. And so she does a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and then she jumps in the other thing, and all of a sudden, 15 hours later, she's actually accomplished nothing. And the reason is because she didn't have clear priorities and clear focus. And it's not her fault. Okay, I do not believe that it's this woman's fault. The reason this is probably this case is because she has so much information, she doesn't know what's important. And so sometimes it's really hard to tell somebody exactly what's important for their business and their situation on a podcast because everybody's situation is different. But this is why I teach my program, Make It Work Online, because I give people turn out all of the noise, don't listen to anything, and listen to the exact steps I give you in this exact order and nothing else. And people make more progress in 3 months than they've made in 2 years. But that's another side point. Okay, So what they need to do is get really clear. What is your priority right now? My priority is to build a website. Great. Stop listening to webinars. Stop worrying about social media. Stop figuring out if you should do X or Y or Z. Just focus on building your website. And when you sit down at your computer, figure out what are the 2 or 3 steps that I'm going to take today to build my website. This level of intense clarity on priorities and intense focus shifts everything out of that chaos, overwhelm, too much information into exactly what needs to happen. Now, here's how you know when it's working, okay? Generally, I find, so I work about 15 hours a week. Sometimes it's 20, sometimes it's 30, but generally it's about 15. And the reason is the work that I do when I work, I'm so focused that when I sit down to work, after about 3 or 4 hours, my brain is done. It's because I did really hard brain work. There's not a lot of fluff in my business. I don't do a lot of superfluous tasks. I do just the important things. And our brains really can't work more than a couple hours of really intense stuff. So that woman who's starting her business and decides to do her website and spends 4 or 5 hours figuring out WordPress and just finally installs her theme, her brain is tired and then she should stop.
Exactly.
And then she should rest, and then she could go back again. And if this level of clarity of priorities and focus, at the end of a month, she will blow her mind at how much she's accomplished. But you have to tune out the noise and get really clear. So that's where it all begins. But like I said, I could go all day long.
All right, that's fantastic. So, Jenny, could you tell us a little bit more about how to make your business work without working too hard? Because we talk so much about business systems, but I think a lot of people don't even know what systems are. They might have them, they might not. They don't know if they have them. It can be very confusing because it's kind of one of those big business words that aren't very clear. So could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I love systems. So definitely there's some confusion around what systems are and what it means. And people think they need them, but they don't really understand what they are. And so I'll just start by clarifying what a system is or how I define a system. So some people might think of systems as like software, like an email system or a newsletter system, like software, whether that's Aweber or MailChimp, that sort of system. But when I think about systems, I really think about them as processes or procedures or a way of doing things in our business that we can do repeatedly. So we can have intentional systems or unintentional systems, like systems happen whether we want them to or not, but when we can create a system intentionally, it really helps our business. So for example, people have their morning routine. Another way to think of a system is a routine. You get up, you use the bathroom, you brush your teeth, you put on your workout clothes, you go outside, you go for your run, you come back. Like they just have a routine. It's a system. They use it over and over and over again. After that system is established, there's not a lot of thinking about it. It just happens. So our business, we want to do the same thing. Because the more routines we can set up in our business for the things that we do regularly, the less creative pressure it puts on our brain. Because like I just said a minute ago when I was talking about the importance of focus and priorities, the creative part of our brain is the part that gets really tired first. And so if we're constantly having to creatively troubleshoot problems and reinvent the wheel every day for everything in our business, our brains are going to get tired and we're not going to be able to focus on what it is that we actually want to create. So when we can put systems in place or routines in place, it takes the mental pressure off our brains. So there are a couple examples of how I have a lot of new business owners do that in their business. So for example, one of them is when it comes to booking new clients. And I have a whole blog post on this process. But basically, a lot of people, when they first start out, they have people email them. And then there's the whole email back and forth game. And then, should I send them some questions before we get on the phone for a consult? And then like, how do I send them the payment? And it's just sort of, they make it up every single time. It's a great place to put in a system. And it helps you and it actually helps your clients. So what that system might look like is on your website, it says, interested in learning more about working with me, schedule a consult here. Okay. And so then they go and they schedule a consult. They get to use a scheduler instead of an email. Mm-hmm. All right. And then they get an email from you. You get the email notification. And then you say, hey, Sally, so looking forward to talking to you next week. I'd love to know more about you before we hop on the phone. Can you answer these 3 questions? So it's like one step, which was the consult coming into the inbox, triggered the next step, which was send an email. Okay. Then you get on the phone and you have the consult and the person says yes. You know the next step is to send them this templated email you already have written that you barely have to tweak that says, here's how to make your payment. There's really clear steps for each person. Now, every business owner is going to have their own process slightly different, and that's fine. We want to make sure that each business owner knows what their processes and procedures are. So there's no question about what order things happen in and what to send them and what link is right. It's just already determined ahead of time. So you have to take some time to set up your system. And sometimes your system is just like a Google Doc with here are the steps to remind yourself. But when it happens, there's no extra creative, energy that your brain has to expend in order to make that happen. Another system is one that I use every week, which is I write my blog in a text file. I make a couple notes. I send it to my assistant. She does her thing. She uploads it. She makes a draft. All these things. She sends it to me. I send her yes or no, or change these things. It's just a routine that we go through. So I don't have to think about it. She doesn't have to think about it. It just happens as expected time after time. So as a business owner looks in their business and they see the things that they do repeatedly, those are the things you want to systematize. So the more systems you have in place, the more your business just runs like clockwork. And you're not figuring everything out like it's a brand new problem every day. And it all happens without your having to really figure it out over and over again. And it's like a lifesaver and a time saver.
Yeah, and it's so useful also once you start outsourcing and taking on an assistant or a VA. you can easily tell them what to do and how the process works rather than going, well, you send this thing and then you get the thing.
Yes, totally. So even if I'm the only one executing the system, it's great to have a system. And then when I brought my VA on way back when, I then said, okay, here's how we do things.
Yeah, exactly.
It was documented and she knew, and it was like she just fell right into the routine of my system and it was amazing.
Yes.
Yes.
Screen capture videos are also really good for that.
Totally. Yeah, actually, that's how I trained my assistant. She was never a VA for anybody else before, and I trained her that way. I was like, okay, here's how you do the task. And I just screencasted me doing the task, and then I sent her the video and I said, here's how to do it. It's great.
So
yes,
fabulous.
totally.
So, Jenny, you mentioned a little bit earlier about how software can be a system. Do you have any favorite software systems that you like to use that you recommend?
Yeah, my favorite software, which I was telling you about before we started recording, is Things. Oh no, that was the person I was talking to earlier.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's so funny. Do you know Things? Have you heard of Things?
Yes, I have heard of Things.
So it's by anybody listening who hasn't heard it. It's Mac software. It's by a company called Cultured Code, and it's just called Things for Mac. And I have the app version, so it syncs through iCloud on my phone. And it's just where I put all my tasks. You can schedule it by project. You can schedule it by due date. That I love Things. And my calendar on my Mac, just the calendar application. And the third thing I use is Boomerang for Gmail.
Oh, yes.
And those, that's it. That and a pad of paper by my desk. Those are the things that keeps my entire business in order. Those are my favorites. Seriously.
I'm so glad you mentioned Boomerang because that is one of the things that has just made my life so much easier. I love it to death.
Boomerang is amazing.
So for people who don't know what Boomerang is, it's this, what is it? Is it a plugin for Gmail? Or is it a Chrome? I don't know what the heck it is.
I have it in Safari, but yeah, it's like I don't know what they call it, like an extension.
Yes,
it's an extension. Yeah, so it's just like boomeranggmail.com. And what it does is it allows you to take a message in your inbox and return it at a future date. So for example, like when you gave me the request for this interview and I said, oh, my early part of the year is booked, but I can definitely do it in the spring. I'll get back to you in April. I then boomeranged the message to come back to me at the beginning of April so that I could find a better time. So it's a way for you to not forget about things like we have so many tasks in our email and people lose them. And so sometimes tasks in our email can be put into a task manager like Things, but sometimes we actually need the email.
Yes.
So you just boomerang it back to a future date. And it's, oh gosh, it's amazing. And then the other thing that it does is you can send stuff later. So I might draft an email that doesn't need to go out till next Wednesday, and I'll just say send this next Wednesday instead.
Yes.
So it is like whoever came up with that idea is genius. And it's worth the money. It's like for a personal account, it's $4.95 a month, and for a business account, it's $14.95 a month, and it is so worth it.
So worth it. And also, if you're sending an email to someone and you need information back, you boomerang it to come back into your inbox if they haven't responded to you in X amount of days. I love that. I don't have to.
That is a great
think
one.
about.
Totally.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yes.
I'm so happy about that. So, Jenny, do you have any women business mentors? Are there any women in business who inspire you?
Oh, it's funny. I have never been one of those people who is always like, oh, I so look up to Oprah. Or, I mean, Oprah's awesome, but it isn't a knock on Oprah. But like, I never really had one of those people that I was always so like, oh, gosh, I so want to be like her. I so want to be like her. And although I've worked with mentors, there's never been anyone that it's like, I really looked up to that person. Mm-hmm. What I found is that, and this has been the case as I was thinking about that question, really, I find myself inspired by the people around me. Mm-hmm. And so my colleagues, my friends, my mastermind buddies who are doing new things or pushing their own limits or anything like that, they are the ones who inspire me, that I look up to, that I say, I love how you're doing that and I want to do more like that. And something about that works really well for me is those people way up on the like the Oprahs of the world, they feel really inaccessible to me, but these are my friends and my colleagues and my mastermind buddies, and when they do things that sort of challenge me or that feel like I could do that but it's a little bit of a stretch, it feels doable. And so those are my inspiring women.
Fantastic. So how can other women in business benefit from working with you? You've got a couple of different options.
Right. So a lot of women when they're first starting out and they're not like ready to go full force into building their business, but want to start dabbling, find a lot of support in my program, Get Your First 1,000 Subscribers at get1000, the number 1000 subscribers.com. It really is about learning how to build your email list. It talks a little bit about business basics. It's about getting things moving. And there's a community and there's some really detailed, down to the gnat's ass, as I say, specifics on how to build your list. And then also I have my signature program, Make It Work Online, which is about helping women who are just starting out, who know what they want to do and have a website, but really don't have that traction, know exactly the steps they need to take to really get things moving. And that's where I tell them to tune out all the noise, tune out all the other distractions, and for the length of the program, focus exclusively on the curriculum, because I walk them through step by step by step exactly what they need to do. And it's not just about like a business training, like you should blog. That isn't how I teach. There's plenty of people who teach that. I say, here's how you need to think as a business owner to know how to create a great offer. Here's how to think as a business owner, and here's how to know if you're thinking in the right way. So I teach people, and then I tell them like how to check themselves to make sure they're doing it right. And so what happens is at the end of the program, they not only have accomplished a ton, they also are self-sustaining. They know how to keep thinking, how to keep strategizing, and how to keep growing their business from there. And that, for me, is super rewarding, because as much as I love coaching clients, I don't want them to be beholden to a coach or a program forever. I really want to sort of set them free. I want to be the mama bird setting the baby birds free so they can go off and do their thing in the world. That's what really lights me up. And so those two programs are big ways that I help a lot of women get going and get started online.
Great. And I saw you also have a program called Make 10K per month.
I do. It's on hold right now for some other things that are happening, but the focus of that program is really about helping women who are making a couple $1,000s a month. It's kind of working, but they can't quite see how to close that gap to, say, making six figures or making 10K a month, as I call it, reliably, consistently, predictably, month after month after month. Because really, that's when everything gets fun. When you can trust that the money's coming in, when you know you can do it. It's that next, as we were saying earlier, tipping point where you now open yourself up to the next level of creativity and expression and exploration in your business when you have that level of financial security.
Yes, that definitely changes everything.
Yes.
So Jenny, where can people find you online?
I am at jennyshih.com.
Okay, perfect. And are you on social media? What are your favorite networks?
I am mostly on Facebook and Twitter, facebook.com, Jenny Shih page, and Twitter at Jenny Shih. And I'm playing on Pinterest and playing on Instagram at Shih Jenny, but right now it's mostly pictures of my dog. So, but my goal is to start doing more business there. So if anybody wants to come and play, there will be more business there in the future.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Holly. It is my pleasure to talk about business. It really, it is such a delight. So thank you.
I can tell you've got so much energy. So thank you again. Thank you for listening. And remember to visit readytobloom.com/95 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Ready to Bloom podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's guests, including links for topics that were discussed at readytobloom.com. That's ready, 2, bloom.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave us a quick review of this podcast. Thank you so much.